Good day. I'm very thankful to Parliamentarians for Global Action and to the United Nations Development Programme for this gracious invitation to this African Parliamentary Forum. As you know, the mandate of the independent expert on protection from violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity was created in 2016 with a very specific mission. On the one hand, to bring visibility to the way in which violence and discrimination manifest themselves in the everyday life of lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and gender diverse persons. On the other hand, to identify effective measures that can be taken by states in addressing and hopefully eradicating those forms of violence and discrimination. Within that task, the task of the state, the role of parliamentarians in the legislative process is of a fundamental nature. Not only is rule of law one of the basic foundations that enables a human rights-based approach, but it is through legislation created in conformity with human rights that most institutional forms of discrimination and violence are combated and prevented. When it concerns sexual orientation and gender identity, we still have great challenges. We are in a world where 69 countries still criminalize homosexuality, and many others criminalize same-sex intimacy between women and forms of gender diversity. The legislations that do so are most often the result of colonial processes of legal imposition that have become, however, deeply entrenched in social awareness and the formation of social mores. Deconstructing legislation that criminalizes homosexuality and other forms of sexual orientation as well as gender identity is a fundamental part of the agenda if states are to act in conformity with human rights obligations that they have taken freely in the womb of international organizations. And on this process, the role of parliamentarians is also key. The importance of understanding the mechanisms that are available to deconstruct state-sponsored homophobia, lesbophobia, transphobia, and other manifestations of phobia that are contrary to international human rights obligations is part of a human rights-based approach to law reform and lawmaking. Other areas are equally to be addressed. We all know that much of the stigma and discrimination that LGBT persons face around the world comes from their instrumentalization to galvanize political bases or to incite hatred through hate speech. The reception and adoption of standards that flow through the United Nations family in relation to hate speech is also to be done by legal and administrative measures in which parliamentary work is essential. But there are other realms in which lawmaking has a fundamental part. Not only constitutions, because many countries are now ensuring constitutional level protection from violence and discrimination, but also importantly, legislation that addresses these scourges and actually provides specific measures to ensure that people will not be excluded or discriminated in areas as fundamental to human development as health, employment, education, housing, and political participation. All of these areas in themselves also key to national human rights plans and to the global development agenda decided under the Sustainable Development Goals. This means that there is an extraordinary relevance to parliamentary work in relation to addressing and complying with global objectives. These signify and signal the place where we all want to take our societies in 2030. Other areas that require special attention are those that relate to the impact of pathologization imposed historically on LGBT lives, and that have created the wrong assumption that being lesbian or gay or trans, bisexual or gender diverse is a form of a mental illness. Some of the consequences of this misconception are exclusion from the health sector and enablement of horrifying practices such as efforts of conversion, also called conversion therapy, or heinous acts such as rape, disgustingly called corrective. All of these areas are also to be addressed through administrative, legal means or access to justice. And again, this is very much what states, or the way in which states construct their business and discharge their functions. Finally, there is the larger role of deconstructing stigma in society. This work is incumbent upon all of us. This work requires that parliamentarians, judges, executive agents from every level see their role as agents of respect and agents of compliance with international human rights obligations. It is the promise of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that every person is born free and equal. It is our joint responsibility to deliver it. I wish you great success in this forum and look forward to a continued conversation. Thank you very much.